know who that is?
It is somebody on the telephone, so I'm not able to promote them.
Okay.
Oh,
And,
that's, sorry, this is Leanne. That Roger just sent me a chat. He said he's connected by audio.
Okay.
He's seeing video, but anyways, he's permanently
No, that's-
muted.
That's fine. He's the phone call then.
Yep.
That's great.
Amy,
I can allow him to talk, Leanne, if he has something to say, maybe he can tell you, and then I can click and allow him to talk if he has something he needs to say.
Sure.
Jim,
Good.
Mary Allen is with me,
Thank you, Jim.
but her name isn't showing. I can't figure out on the unit how to change the name.
All
I
right.
think Amy, you do that, don't you?
Yes, I can do that right now.
All right. I think we're good, Roger. Richard.
Thank you.
This is Rich.
All
Can you
right.
sit up? Can you sit up a little taller, Tim?
Yeah, sure. All right.
There we go.
We're ready. Let's go.
Per RSA 91-A:2, Roman numeral 3.
I'm not able to. Sorry, just 1 second. Sorry, a little issue with going live there. Sorry about that.
Do they realize that I'm talking?
Sorry, Richard. My apologies.
Go. The RPC chair has declared the COVID-19 outbreak an emergency and has waived the requirement that a quorum be physically present at the meeting. We're going to do the roll call and the minutes at the same time.
All right.
If somebody motion the minutes.
So moved, Jim Doggett.
I'll second that. This is Peter Coffin.
Peter Coffin, second. Okay, Tim.
All right. Is the roll call. So when I call your name, you're voting to approve the minutes. You're also stating that you're present, and per the RSA and these remote meetings, you're supposed to say where you are and if you are alone. So if you can remember all that, I'll start with Richard McDermott.
I'm at home and not alone.
You approve the minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right. Phil Winslow.
Yes, abstain on the minutes. I'm home. Wife is in the house.
Beth Morrow.
I am present at home, currently alone. My husband's upstairs, and I approve the minutes.
Stephen Gerardo.
I'm present alone and I approve the minutes.
And Glenn Koppelman.
Present, home alone, and approve the minutes.
Andrew Brubaker.
Present, home, not alone, and approve the minutes.
Lucy Cushman.
Home alone and yes.
Great. Mike McAndrew.
I approve the minutes and I'm home. My wife is somewhere in the house.
All right. Peter Coffin.
I'm home. My wife is also somewhere in the house, and I approve the minutes.
Peter Britz.
All right, I'm alone in a room and I approve the minutes.
All right. Leanne Miner.
I'm home alone. Well, husband not in the house, and I guess I'll abstain since it's my first meeting.
All right. John Tabor.
I'm at home. My wife's in the front of the house, and I approve the minutes.
All right. Dennis Hebert.
Approve the minutes, home alone, and I guess that's it.
Lang Plummer.
I'm home. The car is in the garage and I approve the minutes.
All right. Barbara Kravitz.
I'm home. I'm alone. There are others in the house. I do have a question. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but am I listed as being present? If not, I would ask that I be listed as being present and that I would approve.
Looks like we have Ann Carnaby. We don't have you on there, so we'll correct
You're not on there,
that.
Barbara.
Are you
correct
sure
it.
you were there, Barbara? I don't think you were.
I don't think she was either.
I was not at the meeting?
Not,
No, you weren't.
Okay, sorry about that then. I
don't
apologize.
try to bogart your way
No
in there.
problem.
All right, so I've got Amy, can you
Did you,
unmute Rob?
I'm sorry, did you call on me, Tim? I don't remember you calling me.
He didn't.
Not
Jackie.
yet, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, she's sorry.
Sorry.
She feels forgotten.
All right. Amy, I've got Roger Barham. Can we unmute him if he wants to speak?
Yes, he is. He can now unmute and speak.
Oh, he sent me a text too, if he doesn't figure that out.
All right.
He said he's alone in the office and he abstains on the minutes.
All right, terrific.
Excellent.
Valerie.
Another coordinator.
Hi, I'm home with one human, 5 cats and 2 dogs. A cat's likely to photobomb, can't help it, and I abstain because I wasn't here.
And they don't have any shoes.
What? I have shoes on that my socks clash with.
Okay.
That's all I have for now.
Jackie Grota.
I'm here. I'm at home. My husband is here with me, and I approve the minutes.
All right, and Jim Doggett.
Home, not alone, and approve the minutes.
And Mary Ellen.
Home, not alone, approve the minutes.
Excellent. All right, that's everyone.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, committee reports. Tim, would you take care of the executive?
Yeah, no, there's not a whole lot to talk about.
There wasn't.
The focus in the last executive committee meeting was the 2 things, the budget for fiscal 22, just taking our first look at that, and I'm continuing to work on that right now. And executive committee will see it again in April, likely see something again in May. And I believe this year, the way we're going to do it is bring that forward to the full commission with a recommendation in June, which would normally be our annual meeting with the speaker. But again, this year, we're going to forego that, and it will likely be just a business meeting to address new officers and budget and things like that. Executive committee also discussed the membership of the executive committee, as well as our other subcommittees and the commission at large, in terms of having commissioners from all of our towns. We have 1 vacancy at the moment, which was Phil Wilson from Northampton, who has stepped down from the commission, and now Valerie's here, filling his Northampton slot. So we are seeking someone to join us on the executive committee. I've reached out to a few. What we generally try to do is have a board that has, only does not have, multiple members from the same community. So we try to keep it limited so that we don't have 2 members from, say, Hampton Falls on the executive committee. We try to have 1 from multiple communities. So, and we also try to make sure we have a geographic diversity. And, right now we're leaning heavy on the eastern side of our region. I've reached out to some of our commissioners from Salem to try and get some interest from out in that area, but I have not heard back yet. So it's open, and this is an open invitation if somebody is interested in, participating more with the RPC and learning a little bit more about what we do, and sort of the what's happening in terms of budget and how we operate. Executive committee is a great way to do that, and if anyone else from the executive committee would like to make a plug for that, I'd welcome that. Then finally, the last thing we talked about is continuing to work on the 501c3 and hoping we are going to try to make some steps forward in April on that with new bylaws, and then taking the next steps in terms of our filings with the state of New Hampshire and with the IRS. So, sound about right, Richard?
Yes, sir.
Could I just ask, did you want to mention that we were thinking about doing possibly a meeting in September with the awards?
Sure, yeah. In fact, I didn't put it on the agenda, but the nominating committee was the other aspect of committees that met this month. I forgot to put it on there, so thanks for the reminder, Lucy. Nominating committee is our subcommittee that, you know, addresses vacancies on executive committee and other subcommittees that we have, such as the legislative committee and communications. So, but also as part of their duties, we have our annual awards, which is normally done in June, and those are the Hayden and Quinlan Awards. And there'll be some information coming out about that shortly, but we will be, you know, seeking nominations for the 2 awards. One of them is for, you know, people that have excelled in promoted regional planning, and the other is for someone who's more promoted environmental stewardship around the region. So our hope is that we will take nominations, hopefully make some selections for awards. And then again, rather than do our normal meeting in June with a speaker and in-person event, the hope is that by September, we might be able to do something like that. Of course, all dependent upon what happens with COVID. So, but that's sort of the thinking at the moment. And we'll be taking those nominations shortly. There should be a notice going out to all of you for your input and thoughts on who you think is worthy of those awards.
Okay, who do we have to speak for the legislative committee?
Well, I missed the last meeting myself, and I know Scott has been running it, and I know Jackie is here. The chair, Tim Moore, is not here, so I guess I would defer to Scott to maybe give us an update, and then if Jackie, you want to add anything in, that's fine.
Is Scott with us?
Certainly, yep. So the legislative committee has met, I think, 5 times now, had started with a full list of all of the legislative services requests that Tim had put together with various information on each bill, narrowed that down to 5 bills that we were watching that had gone out in the last newsletter. Those included a bill that would have increased weight limits for trucking on state highways, trucks carrying forest products, a bill that would provide for continued use of virtual meetings following the end of the governor's emergency order, a provision in the state capital budget that includes $350,000 for a coastal flooding model that would assist with the next steps in the seacoast vulnerability analysis. And then 2 other bills relating to municipalities, one of those that would have limited the powers of city councils and by extension town councils, and another one that would have broadened liability for municipalities. 3 of those were tabled ultimately in the final House sessions before crossover. There are 2 of those bills that are still alive. One is SB 95, which is the bill that includes provision for continued use of virtual meetings. There were 2 bills on the House side which had similar provisions. One of those was tabled in committee. One of them had the virtual meeting provision stripped out of it. This bill has a 1-year sunset period, would allow continued use of virtual meetings through next June. And in the meantime, set up a study committee to make recommendations for how to handle use of virtual technology for public meetings going forward. The other bill is HB 25, the capital budget, which passed the House with the provision of $350,000 for the coastal flooding model intact in it. We just heard that there is a hearing scheduled for SB 95 in the House Judiciary Committee, I believe on the 22nd of April. And I have not yet seen a hearing date for the capital budget on the Senate side. I assume that'll go to the Senate Capital Budget Committee. So at this point, we're awaiting those hearing dates. There was some further discussion at our last meeting on Tuesday about several bills related to energy. Jackie, are there any elements you want to add?
Nope, I think it was an excellent summary. Right now, the House met last week, and we're sort of getting everything organized and to tackle the bills that are in front of us. There are only 100 Senate bills coming to the House, so it's going to be easy for committees to have their hearings. So, and the next House session is scheduled for June 2nd and 3rd. So we have that's what that'll be the next time that we vote as a House.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, if 100 is a small number, how many normally do we normally have? Bills.
Well, the House can have bills. The House can have 600 bills.
How many?
600.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott, you can say right there, the MPO business?
Yes.
Transportation alternatives?
All right.
Go ahead, Scott. I'll let you just dive in then.
Great. Let me share my screen here. We're going to work from two different documents. Let's see if I can broaden this so I can see all of you at the same time I'm showing the screen. Is everybody able to see my slide here?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So March 19th was the deadline for submitting full proposals for the fourth round of Transportation Alternatives Program funding. A lot of the policy committee members have been through a few of these rounds, but just as a quick overview for folks who are new members, Transportation Alternatives Program is one of the key sources of federal funding that's available to municipalities for bicycle and pedestrian safety projects. It provides up to a 80% federal share. It's not an outright grant, it's a reimbursement program. And so as part of this, municipalities need to have staff trained in what's called the LPA, or local public agency grant management process. So there are pretty stringent administrative requirements that go along with these funds. So statewide, this is a two-step process, and letters of interest were due in January. The funding pool for this round, this is a 2-year funding round. The funding pool that's available is about $5.4 million in federal funding. There were 41 letters of interest received from around the state. Those 41 letters of interest requested about $29 million in federal funding. There were 8 communities that did not take the next step of submitting full proposals. So there were 33 full proposals that were submitted. And about 22 million in federal funding. And actually that's an estimate because we haven't yet seen a compilation of, we've gotten a number from DOT, but we haven't yet seen the actual dollar value requested in the among those 33 projects. In the RPC region, we originally had 4 letters of interest with projects from Salem, from Rye, from Newington, and from Portsmouth. Newington and Portsmouth ultimately decided not to submit full proposals. So there were full proposals submitted by Rye and Salem. And between the two of those, the funding request is about $1.25 million. So the packet that went out included 1-page summaries of each of those projects as well as project maps. Here's just a brief introduction to those projects, and down at the bottom here you see the projects that Newington and Portsmouth had submitted as LOIs. But for Rye, the project they've proposed is constructing sidewalk, shoulder bicycle lane, and crosswalk improvements right in the town center on Washington Road between Central Road and Wallace Road. And this connects the Rye Junior High School, Town Hall, the Public Safety Complex, the Town Library, Parsons Field, recreation area, and also the community church that's used by the Recreation Department for after-school activities and senior programs. So the project had developed out of a charrette that Plan New Hampshire came and did for the town on bike ped safety improvements in their town center. It's identified in Rye's Safe Routes to School travel plan going back to 2007, and also the shoulder study that RPC worked on for Rye in 2020. So the estimated total project cost is $925,000, of which $740,000 would be federal. For Salem, their project is a sidewalk on Clough Road that would connect the Braymore Woods neighborhood to existing sidewalk on Clough Road, which in turn connects to the Salem Rail Trail. Salem has done work over the last decade incrementally building their rail trail and are now trying to build connections out to adjacent neighborhoods. So this would be about 1,300 feet of sidewalk. Currently, there's a path that goes through the woods from the Braymore Woods neighborhood out to Clough Road. So the sidewalk would connect that path where it intersects Clough into the existing terminus of sidewalk on Clough Road. This is a project that was prioritized in Salem's sidewalk plan in 2016, and the estimated project cost is $650,000, of which $520,000 is requested from TAP. So let me shift documents here. Here's attachment 2 that went out in the packet. So the criteria for this round are, well, we're assuming they're going to be much the same at the state level. DOT has not issued a full set of criteria and weighting for this round. They've said they anticipate using mostly the same criteria, although dropping the socioeconomic benefits criterion. Previously, that was operationalized as school lunch enrollment by town, and DOT indicated that because they don't have good data for that from the past year, they were not going to use that at the state level. The decision at the regional level was to use the same criteria and the same weightings that we used for the last TAP round in 2018. And you can see those here with a heavy weight being placed on potential for success here at 37%. And that's broken down into 13% for project readiness, 17% for financial readiness, 7% for feasibility. Two different aspects of safety considered. The first of those is the safety or lack thereof in the existing conditions. And then the safety benefits of the proposed improvement that would be funded as part of the grant project. Project connectivity is 18%, socioeconomic benefits 12%. And as I said, the decision was to keep that in the regional scoring, but to look at other aspects of access for underrepresented groups. And then at the state level, we're going with the assumption that they'll continue to use just 6% as the weight placed on regional priority. So if that 5.4 million were divided 9 ways, we'd be looking at about 600,000 per region. So here are the summary sheets that you see. On the left side, you see preliminary staff scores that we brought to the TAC. These are 2 very good projects, was staff's thought. And really on the staff scores, they ended up being separated by only 2 points, with Rye being slightly ahead. There was pretty extensive discussion at the TAC meeting. Before we get into that, let me just show you maps that are also in the packet. So up here, you can see Braemore Woods neighborhood. It's 144 units. It's a mix of low, moderate income apartments, some single family houses, some age restricted housing. Connected by this path that you see as a dotted line, comes down to Clough Road. Clough Road is fairly narrow, fairly high speed traffic, and not great sight lines here. So the proposal would be to add sidewalk on the north side of Clough Road. One concern that staff had was that there's a proposal to add sidewalk, but not to add any width for shoulder bicycle route. And so you'd have curb immediately next to white fog line, which actually, while it improves conditions for pedestrians, creates a bit more of a safety hazard for bicyclists, as you don't have the ability to bail out when you're against, if sideswiped by a car, if you're up against that curbing. And then so the existing sidewalk on Clough Road extends out here about to the driveway to BJ's and Target. And so from that existing sidewalk, they could connect in, users could connect into the rail trail. For Rye, let me flip this. Here you see the Rye project. Town Hall is down here on the left side. Central Road coming into Washington. Over on the right here, you see the split of Wallace Road in Washington. Here's the junior high school. Here's the public library, Town Hall, Parsons Field, public safety complex. There's already a very short stretch of sidewalk in front of the public safety complex, but it doesn't connect down to the middle school or down to the junior high. So the proposal would be to add sidewalk, shoulder bicycle routes, and new crosswalk improvements. This is about 1,900 feet total. Connections, crossings of Wallace Road and Washington, sidewalk in front of the junior high, continuing crossing Lang Road, and then meeting up with that existing short stretch of sidewalk by the public safety complex, and then continuing down past the library. So as I said, I think staff felt that both projects were very good. I think the TAC felt that both projects were very good. I think ultimately what tipped the balance in the TAC discussion was the fact that Rye, as a small community, has not previously gotten a TAP project. Salem has had success with securing CMAQ grants and a TAP grant, and has done very well with implementing those. One concern that came up in the TAC discussion was Rye's capacity as a small community to manage the project, because there have been issues that have come up with smaller communities that don't have extensive DPW staff, being able to manage the requirements under the federal and DOT local public agency grant management process. Danya, as Rye's TAC rep, after the meeting, confirmed that the town has talked with DOT, and DOT is now offering that they will manage TAP projects for small communities for a management fee, but that RAI has had that conversation with DOT, and the expectation is that if they are funded, the project would be managed by DOT. And that was the difference between the original project cost that was proposed as part of the letter of interest of 800,000 and the final project cost that came in with the full proposal of 925 is that management fee, I think with some room for error there. So,
Scott?
Yes.
Scott, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can that administration or management fee be taken out of the grant monies?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
And so RAI had actually passed a warrant article in 2020, gross appropriating $800,000 and providing for $300,000 as local match, as a combination of local match and expenses for non-participating costs, because I believe there's some interest in having some landscaping as part of this project, which wouldn't necessarily be eligible as part of the TAP project. Salem had indicated that they had match funding available through their through two of their impact fee programs. They have a traffic impact fee and I believe a recreational facilities impact fee in Salem, and that the selectmen would support a warrant article in 2022 to gross appropriate funds. RAI has another warrant article that will come to town meeting this year, providing for the new higher total cost as a gross appropriation. So, as I said, ultimately the TAC recommended the RAI project as number one, and Salem as a close number two. This may be the fewest TAP proposals that we've had in prior rounds. I think in some of the other regions they have 4, one region may even have 6. But so our requested action is that the policy committee review the materials that went out in the packet, ask questions based on the information I just gave you, and then ultimately take a vote approving a final rank order for projects. And then we need to forward that to DOT by the 26th of April. And then DOT will take all of the regional rankings from the 9 RPC regions and come up with final statewide rankings.
Got it. Thank you very much. Tim, did I cut you off earlier?
That's all right.
Are you sure?
You're the chair. You're the chair, buddy.
Later, I know it.
So I'm happy to answer any questions if folks have them.
Glenn had a question. Well, I had my hand up, but it looks like Phil also has his. So why don't you take Phil and then I'll go after that.
Thanks a lot, Glenn. Just a comment from the town. We're very excited with this project. Working on it now for 5 years. We've expended, the charrette brought in 180 people from the town that participated in developing this, starting to develop this plan. And from there, we went ahead and chartered a town center committee, which has been working for 2 years now on getting the details of the plan put together. We've also funded this already with $22,000 of an engineering study. And it's going to help us significantly protect the children of the town and also elderly people who are walking from the junior high or the Parsons Field to the library. What we're finding now is that the kids walk with traffic because both the school and the library are on the same side of the street. So they're not going to cross the street to walk against traffic. They're going to go the easiest route. And as a result of that, cars and trucks are passing them at between 2 and 3 feet distance. And we've just been blessed to not have an accident so far, but that's going to happen if we don't get this corrected. So again, we're asking for your support. We've also added a teen center to the Congregational Church, which is across the library. The teen center is going to be bringing more students from the high school into the town center, and therefore even more of a need to protect them. And then we've also just demolished a building beside the library. We put in a park. So that's going to, in turn, I think, attract kids to go to the park. So everybody's filtering into the town center. We just need a means to support that in a safe manner. And with that, we appreciate your support.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
Scott, just to go back to my, to follow on to my comment and my question about DOT's willingness to help with the administration and management of the project, of the grant, if you will. To your knowledge, is this the first time that they've offered to do that?
Well, yes and no. Going back to the predecessor of TAP, the Transportation Enhancement Program that you probably recall that started in the 90s, originally DOT managed all of those projects, or most of them. And then around the time, around 2001, 2003, they were concerned about having capacity to do that. And they started encouraging municipalities to municipally manage projects. But then the TAP requirements came down from federal government, and they've been seeing a lot of problems with projects getting bogged down in those requirements. Because projects haven't been moving forward in a timely way, there's, I want to say it's over $4 million, maybe $6 million in TAP funding that has lapsed over the last 4 years and needed to be turned back to Federal Highway Administration. And so DOT is working to try to streamline the LPA process and have come up with a number of strategies for that. And I think this is one of them, to manage projects for smaller communities that don't have extensive DPW staff.
Yeah, it's very much akin to what happens with the community development block grant projects that are also federal monies that flow through the state and through a state entity. Because it's all tied up in federal red tape, it's complicated, and most small communities have a hard time administering those grants with all those regulations. And so the state allows for a third-party administrator. If the town or city can't do it or doesn't want to do it, they can use a certain percentage of the monies to hire a qualified grant administrator to do that for them. And it really does make all the difference in the world in getting the projects done. So I think it's a great idea. I'm glad that they were willing to do that for Rye. Well, for purposes of getting it on to the table for ultimately for the vote, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the recommended ranking as proposed to us tonight.
Second.
Go ahead, Langdon.
Jim Doggett made the second.
Okay, we're good.
Any discussion? Yeah, we're just looking, is there any other discussion? If not, I can call the roll.
I think that was it.
I didn't mean to, I didn't intend to cut off the discussion. I just figured I'd get the motion out there on the table so you're all set to go when you're ready.
Such a gentleman.
This is Dennis Hebert from Newington. I'm really glad to hear that DOT is stepping up to the plate to administer the project, because that was a huge discussion here in the town of Newington, which we only have 700 residents. And that was a big discussion, big part of the discussion, probably part of the reason why it didn't go forward this year with Newington was because of that particular requirement. So I'm really glad to see that. And this is a question for Scott, but is this something they're going to continue in the future, or is it unknown? Because that is a big part of the overall cost.
I'm I'm not sure. I know that based on feedback from the regional planning commissions and from towns, they've been looking at a range of steps that they can take to help these projects move faster. One of the other things is pre-qualifying a pool of engineering firms to do design work that can save several months in the RFQ qualifications-based selection part of the consultant selection process. And I think they're looking at other options as well. So I'm hopeful this will continue. Maybe that this will be an experiment year and see how it goes.
Thank you, Scott.
All right then. So we had a motion and a second. I don't see any other hands or discussion, so I'll just go ahead and call the roll. Richard McDermott. You're muted there,
Yes,
buddy.
sir. Yes.
All right. Phil Winslow.
Yes.
Beth Morrow.
Yes.
Stephen Dorado. Where did you go?
We're unmuted.
You're muted there, Stephen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Glenn Koppelman.
Yes.
Andrew Brubaker.
Yes.
Lucy Cushman.
Yes.
Mike McAndrew.
Yes.
Peter Coffin.
Yes.
Peter Britz.
Yes.
Leanne Miner.
Yes.
John Tabor.
Yes.
Dennis Hebert.
Yes.
Lang Plummer.
Yes.
Barbara Kravitz.
We'll get her later.
She's muted.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Roger, I'm not sure if you're unmuted or not. Roger Barham. Did he send you a message, Leanne?
Yeah, he did. He said he's good with the, yes, he said yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Valerie Gamache.
Yes.
Jackie Grota.
Yes.
And then Jim Doggett
Yes.
and Mary Allen.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So the next step for that will be, Scott, you'll be delivering that this vote essentially of the priorities to the DOT, correct?
Yeah, we'll write up a cover letter with the staff analysis and the TAC and ultimate policy committee vote and send that to them next week.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, everyone.
Julie is next.
Yeah, so
Innovative Land Use Guide.
yeah, so I wanted to thank Julie for joining us tonight too, for and presenting this project. She's the project manager on this. You may have seen our press release giving you some details on that, and I did include it in the packet for you all, so you'd have an idea a little bit more about this. But it's a project that we're pretty excited about, and I won't give away the details. I'll let Julie dive in with her presentation and take it away.
Dive in. That was good.
Thank you, everyone.
Got it?
It's been a while. My gosh, so great to see all your faces. I haven't seen any most of you in such a long time. So great to see you all, even though virtually. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. So I guess I will. Am I okay to share my? Yeah, I can share my screen.
All
Right?
yours. All yours.
Do it.
Okay, so just like a preliminary, yes, we are very excited about this project. It's a kind of a culmination of many years of work in the coastal region, working on climate change, adaptation, resiliency planning. Wow, my screen's like really weird looking. Sorry. So it's sort of a culmination of a lot of work we've been doing over the years, and I think it's going to result in a product that will be super useful to all of our coastal communities and actually be transferable to inland coastal communities too, who are dealing with some impacts of climate change, like flooding and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen now and get on with my presentation. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
I was going to go to full screen mode. I don't know. Doesn't seem, yeah, it's going to
There you
do
go.
it, but I think it's going to cut my slides off. So I'm going to back off from that. Hang on, let me just downsize that a little bit. There we go. All right, so moving ahead. So this project is a partnership between many different entities. First of all, it was funded by the New Hampshire Coastal Program through a project of special merit grant from NOAA. This is another incident or example where our capacity to work in our coastal region is so greatly enhanced by our federal partners to fund these projects, fairly high ticket, projects that we would never be able to fund otherwise. So it's a partnership between the Planning Commission, Stratford Regional Planning Commission, the Coastal Program, the Office of Strategic Initiatives, the Coastal Adaptation Work Group, with all their 20, I think we're up to 29 members now. And of course, the 17 New Hampshire coastal municipalities, 12 of which are in the RPC region and 5 of which are in the SRPC region. So just to give some context to our region here. So I know we're a little, because of my screen over here is a little bit cut off. So I'm gonna move you guys over here a little bit. But so our 27 communities in the RPC planning region, our population is roughly 196,500 people. Our employment centers are about 120,000 employment opportunities. But our coastal community is only 12 of those 27 communities. However, it makes up about roughly 44% of the general population in our region, and over 75,000. So a little bit more than half, more than 50% of our employment opportunities in our region. So our coastal zone really is sort of it's a moneymaker for the state. It's a moneymaker for our region, but it also is really, where our densest populations lie, and a lot of our economic engines are actually located as well. So moving ahead. So this innovative land use guide, we gave it this fancy little acronym here. But we want to, our goals for the project are basically fall into 3 different buckets. So we want to develop a user-friendly coastal land use guide that will help communities to make, more informed decisions moving forward about climate change, climate adaptation, resiliency, and sustainability across the coastal region. And we're hoping that will be a unified approach, hopefully, and foster some coordination and collaboration amongst our coastal zone communities as a result of this guide. We're going to be addressing a range of climate resilience and adaptation priorities, challenges and opportunities in all of our 17 coastal communities. One of the ways we'll be doing that is to, we'll be customizing a land use, either a zoning ordinance or a land use regulation for up to 5 communities throughout the SRPC, RPC region. 3 will be in RPC's region and 2 will be in SRPC's region. And then we'll also be promoting and preparing case studies about communities that have had incredible successes with adopting innovative land use strategies to date. And one of those, I think Peter's on the call, Peter Britz is on the call. Portsmouth has done that, Rye has done that, Hampton. Northampton's working on a wetlands revision to their wetlands ordinance. And I think Exeter's also done some work. And I know that in SRPC's region, Durham and Dover and Newmarket have also adopted some innovative controls at that community level. So we'd like to really kind of showcase those case studies and really describe the process that the communities went through to actually get something adopted, whether it was a zoning ordinance through a town meeting vote, or a regulation through the planning board, or even an update to their master plan, for example. And just sort of highlight the process that they went through, what kind of strategies did they use, what sort of actions did they have to take at the local level, One of those being, I know in almost every single instance, one of the things that was really stressed in all those initiatives was community engagement. So outreach to the community, getting community input and buy-in, so that when something had to come up for a vote, or any other sort of community support, the support was there because the community was engaged and they were informed about what the community wanted to actually achieve. So that's going to be, one of our outreach products. And then the third prong of our goals for the project is to develop a framework for a coastal region sustainability program across New Hampshire's coastal communities. And so a sustainability program that helps with everything from maybe like energy planning, like power purchase agreements, or recycling, or composting, and also, of course, things like addressing coastal flooding, municipal service agreements, and other cross-border issues that we'd like to coordinate on a regional basis, as opposed to each community having to go it alone, or expend more energy and more capacity than's really necessary if we could do it in a more coordinated way across the coastal region. Because these communities have so much in common, especially our Atlantic coastal communities. Our 7 communities definitely have a lot in common as far as the challenges that they face. Our inland coastal communities have sort of a different ball of wax. They have other needs and other goals and priorities that they have to work on. So we're hoping to sort of do a cross-border and across region sustainability program. So we're hoping to develop a framework for that, and how to structure it, how to potentially find a funding source to sustain it over time. So some of the working parts of the project are going to be a project advisory committee, and that's going to be largely made up of our project partners that I showed on the first slide. So mostly a lot of state agencies, regional planning commissions, the Coastal Adaptation Work Group, but also inviting the 17 coastal communities to come to the table and have a conversation. And really I think the focus on the project advisory committee is for these communities to be able to share their expertise, their stories, their experiences, what their challenges and barriers have been, what their successes have been. I think sometimes, I know that's already starting to happen through CAW Talks. I know Peter Britz is part of the CAW Talks group, and Kim Reed and Rye is also part of that group, and Jay Diener in Hampton is also part of that. They're starting to get together and just share information and be a little bit more open and a little bit more participatory as a region, as opposed to every community working on its own. Another component of sort of the working parts of this is to engage the New Hampshire DOT and the municipalities, and looking at our roadway network. We're already doing that through our Seacoast Transportation Vulnerability Assessment Project, which we talked about a couple of months ago, but also looking at how those entities, the DOT and municipalities, can look at infrastructure management, their policies and their planning decisions moving forward in a more sustainable way and in a more coordinated way. And just realizing I have a typo in my slide. There you go. So the other thing is to take this innovative land use guide and the information that comes out of it to help to inform state and local hazard mitigation planning and floodplain management efforts, working through the Offices of Strategic Initiatives, which houses our floodplain management staff and office, but also looking at the state's hazard mitigation plan and how local governments should really try to coordinate with that state plan, as well as their own local plans with respect to the information that comes out of this innovative land use guide. And of course, the other part of, I think I talked about this before, is to have the climate adaptation and resilience planning, including a funding concept to support sustainability across border, basically a long-term strategy to implement not only the land use guide recommendations and the ordinances and regulations models that come out of that guide, but to more broadly increase the capacity of coastal municipalities to adapt and to really thrive. And I think that's the whole idea behind this guide is to really create a more coordinated approach across all of our coastal zone moving forward. And, that includes everything from, I think I mentioned before, things, not only just sea level rise, for example, and coastal flooding, but also things like drought. I mean, we're moving into a very precarious situation right now where things are really dry, and we could be moving into a dangerous situation moving into the summer. We also, potentially face in the future saltwater intrusion and groundwater rise from sea level rise, and what kind of impact that will have on our drinking water wells. So that's definitely one element and one aspect that we'll be wanting to focus on as part of our guide. So just moving ahead, these are sort of examples of some of the buckets that we want to work in as part of development of the guide and the modules that will go into the guide. And this is sort of a little bit of a deviation from the current coastal watershed innovative land use guide that exists today, and that was developed, gosh, I want to say like in 2009, 2010. So it's a little bit, it's a decade old now. I think we've made advances in our approaches to different types of land use planning and environmental planning. And so we'd like to focus on these sort of this bulleted list of items. So land use planning and land use regulations, infrastructure investment, capital improvements, and environment and water resources, including drinking water sources, such as, the whole idea of groundwater rise and saltwater intrusion, but also environmental protection of other natural resources, including wetlands. Taking a little bit of a closer look at living shorelines and salt marsh migration. We have some fantastic new shoreline inventories that we can glean from. We also have salt marsh migration mapping that came out of the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in the last couple of years to really look at places where salt marsh migration can happen in the seacoast. So we'd like to kind of capitalize on that new science and data that's out there, but also looking at municipal services through our transportation corridor study, looking at municipal roadway systems and transportation systems and movement across the region, and how flooding may impact road capacity and roadway function. And again, I mentioned hazard mitigation planning, but also informing master plans and land conservation efforts, such as just land protection, but also open space preservation and things like that. And also communities are always, when we do master planning and envisioning for communities, communities are always very keenly aware of how these environmental changes can influence the community, the character of their community, and the needs of their residents, and how we will need to kind of capture some of that information through public surveys and also just interface and engagement with our coastal communities about what their needs and priorities are moving forward as part of the innovative land use guide. So we may be delving into things like even possibly housing, energy, and other things that really will affect the functioning of a community moving into the future and having to deal with far more challenges and impacts related to climate change and sustainability. So just kind of moving forward, there is an importance for due resiliency and planning in the coastal region for lots of reasons, but there's two I think that are the most important, and that's to have a coordinated approach across the region, which I talked about before, and providing the technical resources across the board in a uniform way, so that all communities have the same level of information and resources at their disposal. So trying to level the playing field and not having a small town rely on its own resources to do research and analysis and assessments and things. So we can provide a sort of a unified approach and a unified set of tools for communities to actually use moving into the future. And then the whole idea of trying to come up with a cost-effective, long-term, sustainable, and reliable strategies to take our communities into the future. So, the whole idea of all the different climate impacts, whether it's a drought and people's water wells are going dry, or it's flooding, sea level rise, groundwater rise, saltwater intrusion. These are all impacts that could, greatly affect and disrupt, life in a community in a very significant way if they aren't addressed now and thought about in advance of them actually happening. What would you do if you if a lot of people in your community lost their water supply, like how would you respond to that? So we want to look at this from a sustainable standpoint, a long-term sustainable standpoint, and looking at what are the systemic disruptions that could possibly happen in a community. So everything from employment to transportation, infrastructure functions, and community function itself. And then looking at ways that the communities can use some of these innovative strategies to help absorb some of those impacts and minimize the disruptions and have a secure level of community continuity across their residents, businesses, even visitors, of course, in the summer, trying to keep life as normal as possible in the face of some of these climate disruptions that may happen. We've all seen examples of how that has happened in this winter in Texas. We've seen wildfires in California, other places around the country where water shortages have come into play. So it makes sense to try and plan for that in the long term and think about it now as opposed to reacting when it actually happens. So this is just a sort of list of our outcomes that we want to achieve. So we want to enhance understanding of the risks from climate change impacts, just kind of across the board, and how they differ from community to community, because every community is not the same. Communities have different challenges, and there's not a one size fits all sort of plan for each community. So it would have to be really a sort of a customized and approach to help communities moving forward. And to help, identify the local and regional gaps and needs, priorities, and appropriate strategies for each of the communities, again, based on their needs and their challenges and the impacts that they actually have to react to. And again, just developing those technical tools and resources and doing a lot of outreach to our communities, having conversations, facilitating more conversations amongst our communities to try to achieve that regional sustainability and coordination goal. And then incorporating resiliency into our local planning and our investments. So there's lots of ways to incorporate resiliency into whether it's transportation, infrastructure, or capital improvement planning or whatever. There are a lot of great examples of communities that are already doing that. For example, Exeter, the town of Exeter passed a warrant article to install a solar array in the community. I think it's at the old landfill. And a win-win situation for the community. It's an upfront investment that will pay for itself in just a small number of years, and then after that, it's income for the community. So really great examples of using some innovative, strategies and techniques to sort of plan for the future. And again, providing a forum and a platform for municipalities to actually have the conversation amongst themselves and with us and others who can provide technical assistance and potentially provide funding in the future to actually move some of these ideas forward. So that's my presentation for tonight. Myself, Jennifer Rowden, and Madeline Diano are the three principal people working on this project, along with Tim, of course. And also watch for there's a link here to the email, to the webpage where this project will live. And as we, as we move forward with the project throughout this year and into the early parts of 2022, we'll be adding lots of resources and information to that site. So please check back periodically and often, actually. And we can probably ping you as a commission when we add new content to the webpage, so you can kind of keep up to speed with and up to date with what's going on with the project. And we'll certainly be sending out more notices for regional meetings, community meetings, and any kind of outreach and other opportunities that we will offer as part of this project. So please stay tuned.
Julie, can we have a copy of this sent to the town administrator, town managers?
What I'll do is tomorrow morning. What I'll do is I will, or maybe I'll do it tonight before I leave, get offline. I can create a PDF and I'll post it to this website right here. This is the project website. I can post it. I can post the PDF to the website. Okay. Would that work?
To start.
Great.
That should work. And just for everyone else, once that's posted, I'll email the link around to the commissioners for you to share.
Yep. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
I
Julie.
think- Yeah, great. Any other comments or questions on this? I just wanted to add that, you know, I'm interested, the interest I have in this project is that there's sort of been a bit of a frustration on my part in that, you know, there's a lot of players in the arena of coastal resilience on the seacoast. And you've heard probably through Barbara and others in Hampton about the Hampton Beach Advisory Committee symposium that was held a couple months back now, but sort of trying to bring everybody together and, like, as Julie described in this project, to have that common, you know, that opportunity to eliminate redundancy and put out, you know, useful information, useful guidance that's universal across these, especially the Atlantic coast communities, but also those inland coastal communities. And you know, the framework that Julie mentioned is something that I'd really like to see when we get this done. Because ultimately, what I'd like to do is have a position at the RPC where we could have a planner that can work with all the communities that are interested in supporting that position to support them in the implementation of what comes out of this guide. You know, there's a lot of details to work out there, but it's a really great opportunity, and I'm glad to have Julie leading the charge, and glad to have that we you know, had the opportunity to get these funds. So, and I see Peter's hand up, Peter Britz.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate you guys, the RPC, for getting the funds, and applaud you for going for it, because it's really a really important thing for the communities to be able to get together. Julie mentioned the CAW talks and CAW. Those are other efforts, for regional efforts that network, but what better place in the RPCs to do this work, to get communities talking together about sustainability. In the a few encounters I've had with other communities, we learn a lot just by talking to each other, and having that build upon with this effort really goes a long way. So appreciate it.
Good point, Peter. Anybody else?
Glenn Koppelman. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Tim. Julie, I'm just wondering if I realize that this is all coastal focused, but it deals so much with resiliency. I'm wondering if you or your group are having any dovetailing or connection with the resiliency work that's being done at REDC through funding coming from the Economic Development Administration.
That's right. Yeah.
We haven't gotten that far yet, but yes, we will definitely, mine that. I think is it Jack Ruderman who's working on that?
Well, no, actually, it's one of the things that Teresa Walker is working for.
Oh, I'm
at
sorry.
RED.
You said REDC. I'm sorry.
REDC. Yes. Yeah. The Economic Development Administration over the last couple of years has put a lot of money into the economic development districts around the country, and 2 or 3 of them here in New Hampshire have gotten substantial funding to hire staff to do resiliency planning and economic development primarily. The North Country Council is one, and REDC, which is the Rockingham region essentially, is one of the other ones. And so, again, it's not the exact same thing, but it is resiliency, and I suspect that there will be some interesting ties between the two.
Are you alluding to the interaction between the coastal properties and the inward properties?
Well, no, because
relative to water.
Because in the case of the Economic Development Administration funding, EDA funding, it covers the whole district, the Economic Development District, and in Rockingham's case, it covers both the inland communities and the coastal communities. So there's going to be a direct overlap in communities, but there isn't necessarily a direct overlap in the work, but there are some good intersecting points, I suspect, and both plans could benefit from working with the other, I think.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Good.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I saw Barbara first and then John, if that's okay.
Yeah, Julie, it's a fantastic presentation and the objectives are so sorely needed. And I just want to echo the essence of cooperation. And I'm RPC's appointment to the Hampton Beach Area Commission. And so we are already very, very sensitive to the needs and particularly the avoiding the redundancy and overlapping purposes and funding and so on. So it's very exciting to work with you on all of this. And the whole purpose of the symposium was to kind of ferret out all of the activities that are going on in the Hampton Beach area, at least, because we had 12 different players there, including you, making the presentations. And I need to simply throw HPAC into the pot because we have the economic development purposes. Hampton Beach happens to be one of the economic drivers for the state. So that's an aspect that we want to be sure that we kind of get that all kind of into the bucket, if you will. But it's great. It's a great presentation and we appreciated it at the symposium as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
John Tabor, please. Thanks.
Yeah, it makes me think of the turtle who was overtaken in a race by a lot of snails, and he said, "It all happened so quickly." You know, this is happening steadily and relentlessly all the time, and I think the value of this is what we're finding in Portsmouth. It really impacts your capital planning. If you look at a 5 or 10 year capital plan, all of a sudden assets like Prescott Park, pumping stations, wells, you have to plan to protect those kind of assets. And it's tremendously expensive. And if you ignore it, then you're like the turtle, you know? So the more we can get this, we can look at our communities through this lens, the better we're going to be able to do the planning we have to do.
Anybody else, Jim?
Yeah, it is. Any other comments or questions? For some reason, I can't see everybody on my screen and I'm not getting an arrow to. See others, but I don't see any hands raised. So if someone has any comments, just speak up at this point.
I would like to mention my neighbor who built their house in 1985. I moved in 1994, and she told me 5 years after they moved in, their well went to sand. It was a 350-foot well. Mine's 152 feet, and I still have great water. So it happened back then. I don't know how often it happens anywhere else, but it's kind of scary.
Well, we're excited to get this project rolling. We've begun the work internally, and you know, so things you'll hear more and more about this over the coming months. And you know, stay tuned. We'll be seeking your input, and we'll be back with more information as we move it forward. That's all we have on this agenda. Richard, I have one comment to make if there's no other public comment.
Go ahead, sir.
Just in terms of our overall marketing communications efforts and supporting the RPC, I'm going to be reaching out to you all and asking for some testimonials. looking for someone other than myself or the staff to say why RPC is important, why we're important to the region, why we're important to your community. So either yourselves as commissioners, or if there's a person in town, a town administrator, town manager, town planning staff who'd want to work with us to put together some communications materials like that. Actually love to do a short video if I can get some people, not to be shy. And
Bill
talk about
Wilson,
us. So,
Bill Wilson.
right. So I'll be reaching out about that, but I wanted to plant the seed out there. I'd love to get some of you all to share some of your thoughts and
Sure.
find the value in the RPC so we can share it with other communities. And Lang.
Just
Hey,
kind
Tim,
of share,
we had, oh, I'm sorry.
just to share with you, well, let's see, this month is something green, I'm not sure which it is, but at any rate, the group in town asked each of the chair people on the land use boards we had a whole minute to describe how we are supporting being green. And it was a challenge, and I practiced it, but I got it done. I haven't seen it, but so it was. But that goes along your lines. I mean, sure, you work up something and go us on and zoom us in, and we'll talk.
Absolutely. I know I can count on you, Lang.
Oh, sure. Yep. Not much else going on.
We talked about actually.
Go ahead, Julie.
We talked about having a guest, like a guest columnist, for our newsletter moving forward, and people could submit ideas of what they want to talk about. If you've done something really cool in your town, or there's some cool event that you want to promote or whatever. And yes, and Lang, Earth Day is on April 22nd this year. It's next Thursday, so.
Oh, thank you. I'll tune in.
Maybe we could get some interesting anecdotes. But do you recall, because I think a lot of you all were part of our regional master plan development years ago. So I'm thinking back to 2015 when we did our regional master plan update, and we asked people to submit little anecdotes or comments about the master plan process, or about their roles in the region. So I would, if you have a copy, maybe we can send that out to people. But they were really inspiring. We got we filled up an entire page of comments from people, from commissioners who commented on the process or commented on how the regional master plan was important to them. So maybe we could kind of do that kind of thing. Maybe we throw out a theme or a topic or something, and we ask for people to submit their comments.
To the editor, Julie, for the newsletter.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. It's the same type of thing. That's the type of, what I'm looking to accomplish here is, communities, select boards, they look at me in a different way, but then they would look at some of their peers who might say similar stuff. So, so stay tuned. You'll hear from me soon. And that's all I have, Richard, for this evening.
All right. Do I hear an adjournment?
Yes, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. It's it's way past 1 o'clock.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, folks.
So, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Dennis.
Be good.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Richard.
Night all.
Night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?